Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Big video today. Today is Sunday, the 18th of May. So, stuff coming as CNN is trying to distance themselves from Joe Biden, as the media is, but in a very scummy, sleazy, backhanded, backdoor way. And that's kind of epic. And also, Donald Trump is saying Walmart should eat his tariffs and not pass it on to people like he's just a child. But before we get to this, let me show you this right here.
A violent and deadly tornado outbreak has killed at least 21 people across the central U.S. and left a massive trail of devastation in its path. The storms leveled homes, uprooted trees, brought down power lines across a dozen states from Michigan to Alabama. And video from hard-hit Laurel County, Kentucky, shows residents and first responders searching through piles of debris.
Okay, so my wife and I were traveling, and we were driving home. And we were near London, Kentucky. And I looked up, and there was trees in the middle of the not in the middle of the highway. There was like a medium, a cement wall between the two. The whatever it was, westbound and eastbound of the highway. And, it's like a hilly area. And there's like fold tree and chunks of like half a house were like some kind of, like a double wide or something. There's like all this debris on the medium. Like we're driving, and I look over, and on the right, there looks like a tornado had hit, and then the other side of the road, it kept on going, so it went past right over the highway. If we had been driving home at that time, we would be dead because there was devastating. The houses were destroyed. There was debris everywhere. And, we've had this before where a car just missed us. This idea of like a matrix or whatever. This car was coming down this hill. I talked about this in earlier videos. My wife and I were just going to this local park to walk our dogs. And it's only about 15 minutes away, and it's all like country roads and not, nothing substantial. And so, this car comes barreling down this, I think it's like some kids joyriding. It was like a beat up old car. And they're barreling down a road that is, I wouldn't have noticed it. It's a side road that the road has, you're coming down this kind of steep hill. At the bottom's a stop sign. And these kids were flying down this road, not knowing that the road came to an end. It came to an end in the road that we were driving on. And, it was probably a road that you're supposed to go like 25 miles an hour. They were probably going like 40. And the car, I look over, and it's about like it's coming straight for us, and we just get out of the way like we're, my wife didn't see it because I was in the passenger seat. And it just missed our car. And there's another car right behind us, and it went right between the two cars. A second later, I would be dead. Like, it was just one of those things. And they were coming straight for this, the road ends, and they had to turn. So I looked around to see if they were going to make the turn, and I don't know how they did. Because, they should have, like, flipped. And there was a river on the other side. But it was one of those things where you were like, oh, wow, we could have just died. Right? We would both probably be dead. I certainly would be. And so, this thing with the tornado was similar.
And mangled vehicles, they're looking for victims. Governor Andy Beshear says at least 14 people died in the southeastern part of the state, and he expects the number to climb. Here's how.
I mean, it was like this on the side of the road. Like, we were driving on the highway. You could see this swath. It was probably about 40 or 50 feet wide, and everything was devastated. Like, it was just passed right over the highway. It was completely fucked. Like, you see these things on the news, it's like one thing. When you're driving through it, you see it, you're like, holy shit, I mean, everybody in those houses, anybody, I don't know how anybody would survive it, right? I don't know if they were warned or what people did, But it was just a very narrow straight. It wasn't some big, long, it was, I mean, like I said, 50 feet, maybe 100 feet wide. The total damage was hard to say. Certainly less than 100 feet, 100 feet or less. And so, so there's this. Okay, let's move over to Trump here. Speaking of disasters.
Developing today, Walmart responding to President Trump after he called out the chain's plans to raise prices later this month. Trump in a Truth Social post earlier saying Walmart should, quote, eat the tariffs. Well, here to break all this down for us, the CNBC retail consumer reporter.
Okay, we'll come back to that. I'll read the whole tweet. Or the whole, whatever, truth. The Truth Social thing.
And consumer reporter. You do both.
Yes.
Melissa, thank you very much, Melissa Repko, for being here on this. So take us through all the back and forth on all this and all that's new today and why Walmart was saying that it does need to raise prices. And yet the president's saying, yeah, I don't think so. You and China need to do something else.
So, Alex, this all dates back to Thursday when Walmart reported its quarterly earnings, and it warned that price increases were coming later this month and into June. Walmart's CFO, John David Rainey, told me that they just can't absorb all the price increase. They plan to absorb some of it, and they said they expect their suppliers to absorb some of those higher tariff costs. But he said even with that lower rate of 30% on Chinese imports, it's simply still too high in his view. Here's more of what he said earlier this week.
We're wired to keep prices low for customers, but the level of tariffs that have been proposed is pretty challenging for all retailers, for suppliers, and certainly our concern is that consumers are going to feel some of that.
So you have to wonder, because I read somewhere, and again, I'm not as up on it as you are, but that
She's not as up on it as she is.
would be some increase in May and a further increase in June. So what gives now then?
The question is really where tariffs will ultimately be. Companies like Walmart are trying to make a bet on...
Okay, so what is Walmart's response to Trump? Well, let me show you what Trump said, then we'll try to find Walmart's response. Panic Trump lashes Walmart for telling truth on tariffs. So this defines Trump as not only a person, his character, his maturity, and also him as a businessman and as a president. So it's a 4-level failure here. I mean, it's, Trump is just sucking, and this is everything that happened after he faked that assassination attempt. You could say you give the guy a second chance at presidency. Maybe he learned his lessons. Maybe he'll be a better, like a truther type president because he's engaged with truther narratives, right? You could give him a shot. Like you could say, all right, let's give this guy a shot. We know Biden sucked. So you could make that case. So let's see what he does the second term. Maybe he's going to go full out. He's not going to be like, he got worked on COVID and did the Operation Warp Speed, but maybe he'll do some things differently, right? But once he faked the assassination attempt, which everybody in the truth community should have called out because it's so fucking obvious and embarrassing, so fucking brutal, right? Just so bad. But, there's been a consistent display of Trump being not about the stuff that he says he's about, right? And, not being a good businessman, not being there for his supporters, not being a true, whatever it is, Republican, conservative, truther, whatever he's trying to pretend that he is, that he's just always been a piece of shit. So he says this: Walmart should stop trying to blame tariffs as for the reason raising prices throughout the chain. Walmart made billions of dollars last year, far more than expected. Between Walmart and China, they should, as is said, eat the tariffs and not charge value customers anything. I'll be watching, and so will your customers. And so, everything that Trump does is like threatening. Like that's kind of threatening. But, him first saying Walmart should stop trying to blame the tariffs as a reason for raising prices. The tariffs are 100% responsible for raising prices. Like he's trying to make it sound, that almost sounds like Walmart wants to raise prices and they're doing it because of the tariffs. I mean, I guess that's what he's saying here. They just want to raise prices, right? So first he says, like, they don't have to raise prices because of the tariffs. Walmart made billions of dollars last year, far more than expected. So what he's trying to say is, you guys made lots of money last year, and so why don't you just, instead of charging people the tariff price, lose some money, which is fucking anti-business, right? If this was happening to Trump, if Trump had businesses that was hurt by the tariffs of some other president, he would whine like a little bitch, right? You know how Trump would be. Like every business person would be that way. And no business person would eat the tariffs and not pass it on to their customers. They can't do that, right? And like Walmart said, they have a very small, thin profit margin, when they first talked about this. And so it's just not Walmart, it's going to be across the board because tariffs are a tax. So for him to say you guys should just eat the tariffs, what business are in business to be profitable? They're in it to make money, like he is, right? Why doesn't he give his $2 billion of profit off of Truth Social bullshit? It's not a truther. I mean, this, a drop of truth. This isn't a truth, right? He's a piece of shit, lying piece of shit, right? And so for him to claim as a businessman, I'm not one of those type of people. Like, I'm not, like, really into business and, these things. Like, it's not my whole, whatever. I mean, just look at my YouTube channel. Like, whatever I do in terms of trying to keep the YouTube channel afloat. Like, I'm not a business-oriented person. But, these people are. Walmart is what they do, and Trump is that same way. And eating the tariffs, what the fuck are you talking about, right? Because it's all about him. He thinks he's like the king and everyone should eat the tariffs because of his great plan. Like, he didn't think that they were, he thought everyone was just going to eat the tariffs and not pass on the tax on to the people. Of course they weren't going to do that shit. Fucking dumbass, right? It shows him as a character. Like, if he was on the other side of this, he'd whine like way worse than Walmart is. And he'd condemn the president for doing something so mean to him. He'd take it fucking personally, just like the little bitch that he is. Like, he's just got so levels of immaturity, who he is as his character. This, do unto others that you want as others have done unto you, right? And so, like he would just, this is not, it defines him as a character, who he is as a character, and all these other things, and a businessman. Like, he didn't know that they were going to raise prices. He didn't think that the tariffs were going to cause people to raise prices. Fuck is he talking about, right? And then he says, between Walmart and China, they as said, they should eat the tariffs. What the fuck? You can't, like, they should? They have their own business interests. What, because of what you need and what you want? Is that what your plan was, that these fucking companies were going to eat the tariffs? That's your fucking plan? You thought these motherfuckers was going to not pass on the tax on to the customer? You actually fucking thought that. No one in your fucking administration said, yeah, they're not going to eat the tariffs. What, you fucking brain dead? Dumb fuck, right? You thought they were going to eat the tariffs. And we're going to get to Biden, too, because this shows you everywhere how bad the Biden thing is and was. And not charge value customers anything. They're not charging them anything. You're charging them with your fucking tax. You're taking a fee. Like, it's like a thug who says, you guys are going to give me 30% of everything you're making, or whatever it is, 15%, whatever the tariff is now. It was 145%. So you guys are going to give me that, and then you can sell your stuff in my area. And immediately the price has to go up by 30%. It's just that's how it's gonna be, right? If some guy comes in and you have to pay him protection money, then they're gonna have to get that money from somewhere. You have to raise prices, right? Like when a thug comes in and puts a tax on, he's taxing these companies, many American companies, and these goods that are coming in, even if they're Chinese goods that are being sold at Walmart, they're going to cost more fucking money because you've now added 15% to it. And they're not going to eat that, right? And Walmart's saying they are eating some of it, just because they don't want to freak out the customers. But eventually, they're just going to have to raise prices across the board. They'll just do it in phases, and they're going to have to lose some money, and it sucks for them, and they're pissed off by it. and you ain't going to bring manufacturing back because that ain't fucking happening. You don't know what the fuck you're doing, bro. Unless you do want to bring down the American economy, or you're just being told to do so. But this isn't about fucking making America great again. You're a fucking fraud. Your whole MAGA thing's a fraud. Tariffs do not make America great again. It's not a path to make America great again. I think most people understand that now, that Trump is a fucking bozo at best, a fucking scumbag and a country killer, an intentional country killer at worst, right? And so Walmart responded here. We have always worked to keep our prices as low as possible, and we won't stop. Yeah, that's what they do. They make their employees suffer, right? You know what they should do is pay their employees less, take away their employees' benefits. That's the kind of shit Walmart does. So that's, I mean, this is what the kind of pressure Trump is putting on. It's a whole fucking thing, right? So just Trump's a fucking nightmare. Okay, so I just ate breakfast and I talked to my wife about the tariff things. I'm going to say one more thing about that and then segue into this Joe Biden audio tape leak. And it just shows you how fucked we are. It's just so bad, right? But first of all, with the tariffs, it would indicate that Trump doesn't know who Walmart is. Like he even said, you guys made billions in profits. They're there to make profits. They treat their employees bad. They sell horrible, toxic shit. Death in a cart, cancer in a cart, right? People walking around with cancer and heart disease in their cart in terms of their foods, processed foods, their shitty clothes, the vibrations and energy. I'm pretty sure, these box stores can be converted into military bases. There's all kinds of, there's all these things that are, whatever the energy that is. I can't stand being in Walmart. Like, I like Costco, but there's something, some of these other stores I can go in. And as soon as I get into Walmart, I want to leave. Like, they're emitting, low frequency shit just to wear you down. I don't know what it is, right? And it's just a depressing thing. If you look around at the people there, no matter what you want to say about, America and the news media and the powers that be and religion and all these things, all the institutions and all the hope that you have to survive. You go into Walmart, you look at the people and you're like, holy fuck, we're screwed. Like, how can you not say that? How can you not go into Walmart and say, wow, we're doing fucking great. Look at these winners. Look at these Mensa candidates, right? There's some kind of thread, I think on Reddit or one of these, probably multiple places, and it's pictures of weird people at Walmart. The worst of the worst, but it's just everybody. We're not doing well. And it's just been, it's getting worse over time. We're going in the wrong fucking direction. We're de-evolving, right? We're less than on every level. And that's the key indicator to a collapse. A collapse, if the people are getting less and less natural, less and less functioning, physically weaker, more entitled, all the bad trending categories, then your system is collapsing. Your system is created to, should be created to bring out the best in you. If it's bringing out the worst, then the system itself will collapse because the people will collapse, right? Self-destructive, right? If you looked at this as a business or any kind of organization, as a team, as a whatever it is, you looked at the youth, you looked at the people, and you're like, oh my God, we're fucked. We're totally fucked. This is what we got to work with. This is our fucking, this is what we are as a species. And the very nature of Walmart is greed. And China is greed, right? China isn't doing this, we just want to try to make Trump's policies work. We just want to make these tariffs work. Nobody fucking asked for the tariffs. Walmart didn't, give you money and say, hey, put a bunch of tariffs on China. You think Walmart wants this? No. You think China wants it? No. You think they're going to help you? Fuck no. They're not going to help you. Why do they help you? And it just shows Trump's narcissism, right? We're trying to do something special here. We're watching you guys and so are your customers, Fucking total twit, right? I can't believe people are surprised by this, and they're not even. I'm sure there are a lot of Trumpers just think he's doing a great job. Yeah, Walmart, screw Walmart, But where was Trump when Walmart was, part of the group of people that were censoring YouTube by not running ads on YouTube because of some bullshit thing where they're trying to censor us, particularly the truth community, and then everyone else in general. They're trying to get a hold to get pressure YouTube to, to do what they're doing with ads, right? Which has screwed all of us. And I said we should boycott Walmart and McDonald's and Coke and all these things. Like YouTubers should have all went out there. I mean, I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I made a video, and my videos don't reach that many people and whatever. But I said this is the one time we could boycott. If you could take down like 5% of Walmart's profits by getting a boycott or just, do brand damage. If every YouTuber went out there and said, this is a list of people that are fucking us with the ad apocalypse, the apocalypse, which was what it's called, it's 2016. And, the PewDiePie was involved. Like he had 12 million, followers or something crazy back then. He's many more now. If he came out and said, let's boycott all these people that are screwing us, then, that would have changed everything. I mean, maybe not. Like, who knows? The corporations might not have responded to boycotts, but it was our last chance to do something. And now Trump, so many years later, is going to get into it with Walmart, but not about saving people or making America great again or making America first or, valuing his people that got him elected, many of them who are alternative media people. No, fuck those guys, right? Fuck all you guys, but they're trying to do this to me, and I'm Trump, and they don't do shit like this to Trump. And so there's that. So the other piece is CNN and MSNBC are trying to walk back their support for Biden. Like that was coming out. And it's like at a good time because there's Trump news. And Jake Tapper's written this book, Original Sin, with Axios, which is another liberal leading thing. And they're trying to make it like they're breaking the fucking story that Joe Biden was senile. When me and other people were saying in 2019, oh, this guy's fucked in the head, right? And I gave diagnostic criteria based in, my years of working. I have a master's in counseling. He had clearly had dementia, which is later I learned it's Parkinson's. That great video I showed you guys of the MSNBC where they interview a doctor who works specifically with Parkinson's. Because a Parkinson's doctor came to the White House like 8 times and they tried to pan it off on some young soldier, which was some bullshit thing. Some guy who was a neurologist who specialized in Parkinson's. So MSNBC mistakenly brought a guy on for a doctor of Parkinson's. He said, yeah, everyone who's a Parkinson's doctor knows this guy's got Parkinson's. You just look at him. He's demonstrating all the symptoms. And he didn't get it yesterday, right? So I'll say some of these things again in a moment. But MSNBC and CNN are trying to walk this back. But what's interesting about it, I got the clips off the TV. There's times I'll watch a little bit of news while I'm eating breakfast and, other meals or whatever. I'll watch 5 minutes of news or something just to see what ideas for videos and things. And they're always something. And sometimes I watch something that's, something I'm going to use and they put it on YouTube. It's something that they put on social media, on Twitter or YouTube. The show itself has its own, like each show has their own, most of them have their own Twitter account. And they'll put some of their clips on Twitter. And then CNN, YouTube will put some of the clips on YouTube. But they didn't put any of these clips that I'm about to show you on YouTube. And when I turned on the TV this morning to eat breakfast, I looked at MSNBC and CNN. CNN had Van Jones and David Axelrod talking about what they have to do to start a new Democratic Party. Like the Democratic Party's in shambles. And of course they have their own personal agenda or whatever way, because they all have their different angles. Like the Democrats the Republicans and the Democrats aren't a cohesive group of people. So some of them are more liberal, like the Democrats, some of them are more liberal, some of them are more centrist. And they're all going to say, yeah, we have to go full liberal now. We have to go full, whatever demographic they belong to, right? They're all going to try to push it in their direction, saying, oh, we should have done it my way the whole time. And none of them have the answer, right? Like, none of them have the answer. I mean, someone's going to get elected just because someone gets elected. It's either going to be a Democrat or a Republican. But it's not because they're doing a good job, right? Trump did a good job of selling a bunch of bullshit to a bunch of dumb fucks, right? But that's, hopium smoking people. But other than that, there's not any winning message out there. And the message that Trump sold was a load of horseshit, which we now know, right? But CNN and Jake Tapper particularly are going after Biden in a way that's just so icky, but they're not putting it on social media. So they're doing it on their network, and I've been doing it on for a couple of days because these audio tapes of Biden's conversation with the district attorney or the lawyers representing the whatever governmental agency was looking into Joe Biden's mishandling of classified docs. And let's get into it here because it's self-explanatory.
To release the 2024 report saying that while he believed Biden mishandled classified documents, he did not think a jury would convict him because the president came across as, quote, a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory, a quote that caused the White House to explode with fury. Let's get right to CNN.
So somehow I turned on Jake Tapper right when this was happening. So he was like ending his show. I don't know what it was. I don't know why I was watching it because it's a later show. Either way, there was these audio tapes that they just released, right? The Justice Department, District Attorney or whatever. And I'm going to show you two different things, a day after they had gone through them. But there's two clips that are significant that they showed. I'm going to show you the clips, and then I'll comment on them the second time I show it to you. It sounds confusing, but it's not. Anyway, here it is.
Have now released this. So again, we haven't heard this ourselves. Axios has now released this audio. But it's important, Jake, for us to know exactly how the president sounded in those interviews, and how and why Robert Hur made those conclusions.
Yeah, and one of the things that's very clear if you read the transcripts is that President Biden really was having significant trouble with dates. We're ingesting the audio from Axios as we speak. We just got a soundbite. Let's listen.
Trump gets elected in November of 2017? 2016. All right. So, why not 2017?
That's when you left office, January 27th.
Okay. But that's when Trump gets sworn in.
Right, correct.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm going to comment on what he said there, right? I'm going to show you this again with the gumball guys coming up, the second report the next day. So this was Friday night. This was breaking, 5, 6, and whatever it was when Jake Tapper shows on. And maybe later on that night. Maybe I think I was watching YouTube. I'm not sure what's happening. But then, they have this kind of big thing. Jake Tapper's just published this book, and they're giving it mild coverage on CNN because they want to distance themselves. They don't want to pretend that Biden and the Democratic Party didn't implode, but of course Trump's imploding right now with the tariffs, and so they can't pretend that he just didn't shit himself during his presidency, especially the last year. That's what they want to focus on. They're all pretending like this just happened. There wasn't signs of dementia when they full-throatedly backed him in 2019 and 20. When the guy had dementia then, he was, obviously deteriorating, which anybody could see. You had to be wantonly not seeing it. But they're pretending it just got so bad the last year. No, it was bad all the time. It was probably bad when he was vice president. This just didn't happen. He had Parkinson's, and it takes a while for all these things to develop to as bad as it was at the end. And he was showing signs of this the whole time. He should have never been elected in the first place.
Tapes October 2023.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that period?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period.
So that's the part that I was talking about. He's not clear of dates. He's not clear on when Bo died, when Donald Trump won the presidency, when he lived in Virginia. And this is what Robert Hur heard, and why it was so significant is so few people were able to have access to President Biden like this for hours at a time when he was showing this less than optimally functioning Joe Biden.
See, this is where it gets silly because, you know, I mean, I knew in 2019, I'm like, oh my God, this guy's fucked, right? I had seen Joe Biden in various times over the years. I wasn't a big news watcher as a young person, but I'd seen him. I'd seen him talking, and he was a good speaker for what he was, right? He pretended to have this tough guy, blue collar thing, but he wasn't that. He was basically, his first real job was a lifeguard, but he was elected as a senator at 29 years old. He spent 50 years in doing this kind of bullshit that they call doing service, but, he was making premium dollars, corrupt fuck, right? And just, kind of a gaffe magnet. He said stupid shit. He did stupid shit. But the guy had run for president in 1998 or one of the 80s, 88 or something like that. He ran for president, and he plagiarized. He got caught plagiarizing. He just lifted people's life stories. And so he had to withdraw in disgrace. He wasn't going to win anyway. He went to the Democratic nomination. He ran for president 3 more times. And he didn't succeed because people knew this guy was a bozo. And then, they make bozos vice presidents. I mean, think about the amount of vice presidents that end up becoming president, other than like a death or assassination or something like that. And so it's not a direct pathway to the White House. Most of the vice presidents don't become president. And oftentimes they're boobs, Dan Quayle, Joe Biden, they're like Ed McMahon to, Johnny Carson, like some guy who's supposed to go out there and like be a dope to make the president look good. And that's what Joe Biden was good at, being a dope, right? And he did a lot of gaffes and he started to deteriorate. And Jake Tapper is making it sound like, well, these people had access to him and they knew. This isn't new shit. Joe Biden not remembering dates. This isn't something new. In the campaign, when he had the campaign during the primaries, remember they closed the country down for the presidential campaign. He was, he'd go out in a car and people would be sitting in their cars and he'd give a 10-minute speech and they called it campaigning, right? And so, there were some highlights I showed you of all the things. I have a whole, Joe Biden. Well, let me see if I have my Joe Biden meme collection. It's not even, it's just, this is old stuff that I collected. Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is a compilation of some of the gaffes, things that JoJo has said. Just a few of them. I don't think I have all of them, but just some of the gaffes that I've covered. And I know there's things I don't know about, and there's future gaffes. But as of December 2019, these are JoJo's gaffes, right? And, yeah, enjoy them.
We got to recognize that kid wearing a hoodie may very well be the next poet laureate and not a gangbanger. Ladies and gentlemen, there are too many black men, and I might add women, in prison. Stay in fact, anyway, my time's up. I'm sorry.
I was ready to prostitute myself. And
if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. We choose truth over facts. A big portion of it called Crimea. Right. He's saying that it was President, my boss, it was his fault.
It's President, my boss, it's his fault.
Do not put it on me, sir. Please, sir. Do not.
Look, why should voters give you another chance?
Because it got done before. Oh, yeah. It's your professionalism that I respect. Because it got done before. I'm the only one up here who's ever beat the NRA. They have every problem coming to them. We have to make sure that every single child does, in fact, have 3, 4, and 5-year-olds go to school, not daycare, school. We bring social workers into homes and parents to help them deal with how to raise their children. Play the radio, make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night, the phone, make sure the kids hear words. A kid coming from a very poor school, or a very poor background, hear 4 million words fewer spoken by the time they get there. There's so much, no, I'm going to go like the rest of them do, twice over, okay?
Look at this creepy guy touching her hair, snoozling her.
Okay, right.
Just how creepy is this? Goes on forever. This
guys, look up and send a photographer up
This
top.
creepy MF. Get the porn cam. Get the grope cam up there.
Can I move just alone?
No, you frickin' creepy sniffer, groper, snoozler. No, you cannot. I'm saying no. Jessica cannot have a picture with you alone, you fucking creep.
Dad's gonna stand pretty close.
Dad's gonna have to stand pretty close. Dad's gonna have to stand pretty close. And they laughed, right? Because they don't trust this creepy MNFer with the daughter, and yet they're just serving her up here. Because, you know, I've talked about this before. It's an awkward situation where Biden's in control, right? In terms of there's all these cameras, and if somebody speaks out and says, you know, knock it off, you frickin' creep, they're put in an awkward social situation, right? And he's like, no, I'm not doing anything wrong, right? You know, I'm just trying to be affectionate. I'm just reaching out to people.
She's a lovely child.
What he said there is, if I was younger, I would switch parties. So she's a Republican. So he's saying that, you know, she would make him switch parties. And her dad, like how fucked up is this, right? This is 2015 when he's vice president swearing these people in. And he did it over and over again. This, I have to say, it's a little bit more here, I think. But I don't have the full thing. I made a whole video on this. The whole, you know, I mean, multiple young women, some young boys, some moms, he's just totally handsy and inappropriate. In a situation where they can't call him on it because they're having their special day getting sworn in. And it's just, he's taking advantage of that. He's just a true creep. Again, this is when he was vice president.
By the way, if I were young and I had to choose parties. I went to pin him. I said, sir, I don't want the damn thing. Do not pin it on me, sir. Please, sir. Do not do that. I went to pin him. I said, sir, I don't want the damn thing. Do not pin it on me, sir. Please, sir. Do not do that. I went to pin him. I said, sir, I don't want the damn thing. Do not pin it on me, sir. Please, sir. Do not do that.
So here's an example of some more of his snoozling and groping and nuzzling behaviors. It's just really creepy, this guy, right? And there's more gaffs coming, spoken gaffs. But this behavior, this guy should be unelectable, right? And it's just right there in front of everybody.
And by the way, you know, I sit on the stand and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap. Increasing exponentially. Top 1.
Exponentially.
2% have done exponentially better. The only African-American woman that ever been elected to the United States Senate. A whole range of people.
No,
my point is
that's not true. The other one is here.
I said the first. I said the first.
You didn't say the first. Let's go back. You said the only. He said, I said the first. I said the first. Look at Kamala Harris getting a big belly laugh here.
African-American elected. First. African. So my point is,
he's fucking senile.
the reasons I was picked.
But the biggest one is he forgot or tried to lie about something that he said literally seconds earlier, right? He says only, and he goes back and tries to change history right there and says, no, I said first. I said first, not only.
Caucus, the only African-American woman that ever been elected to the United States Senate.
He just said only. It was only. We heard it, Joe.
A whole range of people.
No,
my point is
that's not true. The other one is here.
Look at this confused look.
I said the first.
He literally just said only And he got a confused look on his face like, oh. And then he tried to rearrange reality and change it, what he said, from only to first. I mean, it's just right there. Like, he's confused. Watch his confused face here.
The only African-American woman that ever been elected to the United States Senate. A whole range of people.
No,
my point is...
that's not true.
True, Joe.
True. I said the first. I said the first African-American elected.
Corn pop.
They weren't allowed to. There was a 3-meter board. And you fell off sideways, you landed on the darn cement over there.
He's so funny.
And Corn Pop was a bad dude.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
And he ran with a bunch of bad boys. All right, remember Corn Pop. This guy's the phenom, right? He's the phenom of gaffes, inappropriate behaviors, all of it. And I didn't even get into his no malarkey tour, right? Because that's a part of it. He has a no malarkey tour going on. And so, well, I guess that's here. And so you have this no malarkey guy, and he's kind of full of malarkey, right? And so, yeah, this is JoJo. And how could this guy possibly win the presidency? Like, it would mean America's... Okay, so here are some more memes. Once I saved them all under Jojo Magoo. I looked under Joe Biden, then I realized I was only calling him Jojo Magoo back then. But here's some more gaffes and memes and things that he did that showed his senility.
I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been dumb.
This is a guy who doesn't know much about anything. Let's go, Brandon. I agree.
Second, I've asked Congress to increase my dosage of talkie pills.
I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been dumb.
False flag operations, and since then we established a liberal world order, and there's gonna be a new world order out there. My name is Joe Biden. I'm Barack Obama's vice president, and I'm Jill Biden's husband. My name is Joe Biden. I'm Jill Biden's husband.
My name is Joe Biden. I'm Jill Biden's husband. You know, like a granddad joke. It's not even a dad joke. It's a granddad joke. And, well, let me show you this. He stole it, right? He plagiarized it from JFK, so it isn't even his original joke.
I do not think it altogether inappropriate to introduce myself to this audience. I am the man who accompanied Jacqueline Kennedy to Paris, and I've enjoyed it.
I am Jill's husband.
Hello.
As I said many times before, I'm Jill's husband. Hey, everyone. I'm Jill Biden's husband. My name's Joe Biden. Please sit down. I'm Jill's husband and Naomi Biden's grandfather.
So I have a few more things to add here. This guy, Joe Biden, challenges to a push-up contest. He calls him fat, like that's his name. And, he loses it here. And people knew this. He was like, this is not appropriate. But they didn't call him on it. I mean, all the other things I've showed you, some of them, when he was vice president, there was all these things.
That's your son over there. Get a job and work for a gas company that you had no experience with gas or nothing. In order to get access to the public, for the president. So you're selling access to the president just like he is. So
You're a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one...
You're a damn liar, man. That's not true. Of course, we know Hunter Biden sold access, right? Like that was,
No one has ever said that? No one has heard that? No? You see it on the TV. No, I know you do. And by the way, that's why I'm not sedentary. I get up and no, let him go. Let him go. Look, the reason I'm running is because I've been around a long time and I know more than most people know. And I can get things done. That's why I'm running. And you want to check my shape line, let's do push-ups together here, man. Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do.
Okay, so this is why they couldn't let him campaign. In 2020, they shut him down after they rigged the primary for him. because they knew he couldn't do it. Like, he was falling apart here. Some guy, confronts him about his corrupt son, and then he gets all defensive.
Number two, no one has said my son has done anything wrong, and I did not on any occasion. And no one has ever said it. Not
I didn't
one.
say you were doing anything wrong.
You said I set up my son to work in an oil company. Isn't that what you said?
No, he said gas company. And he said that, they gave him a job to buy access to the president because he's old himself. The guy asking the question.
Keep your words straight, Jack.
Keep your words straight, Jack.
But I hear on MSNBC.
You don't hear that in MSNBC. You did not hear that at all.
Yeah, because they're in our pocket. They're in our back pocket.
You heard. Look, okay, I'm not going to get in an argument with you, man.
Well, I don't want to.
Well, yeah, you do, but look, fat, look, here's the deal.
Look, fat, look. He calls him fat, right? I mean, number of things to get him canceled. This is 2019, and he's running for, this should have been, all the other candidates should have went after him for this. Like, none of them did. Like, he's senile, right? He can't fucking have a civil conversation. He's not capable of doing this. Walking away, turning his back to the crowd and to the guy, calling him fat, challenging to a push-up contest.
Here's the deal.
He looks like you don't have any more backbone than Trump.
Again, he can't come up with anything. He's struggling to come up with what to say here, right? I mean, there's all these things he's showing cognitive decline. Anger is one of the things that happens when people have dementia. They get angry because they can't. They get confused. They get overwhelmed, right?
Any other questions?
So then he's with this soft-spoken NPR woman right after that exchange, right? And so this is him supposedly doing damage control. He's way too close to her, like inappropriately close. He's one of those people, he's a close talker. He gets too close to you. It's very uncomfortable, right? And there's people like me who want some distance, and then when somebody's, right next to you, talking to you, like, it's just overwhelming to have their big old fucking ghoul hole and face next to you, right?
But he still can't cooperate. Look, after he was elected, I was able to get almost $9 billion passed 2 weeks before he got sworn in January. You all told me it's impossible. Come on.
Look at how close he is.
Come on, give me a break here.
Give me a break here. Here. Ooh.
Donald Trump is the reason why you need someone who knows what they're doing. Donald Trump. Name me somebody who's going to be able to stand on the world stage and immediately command the respect of everyone in the world, our enemies as well as our adversaries, as well as our allies. I know all these people. This is the only reason why I'm running this time is because of my experience.
Well, Barack Obama was able to do it, and he didn't have very much experience at all.
No, that's not true. Think about it. That's not true. What happened was, one of the reasons Barack Obama picked me as vice president is because he lacked the background in foreign policy. He's a brilliant guy. He knew what...
Yeah, so there's that. But then he comes here.
...will be vice president of the United States.
So let's move forward here to this. This is where he gets angry. Right here.
And look, I'm in a situation where, look at my staff. I have the most diverse staff of anybody running. I've always done that. This is who the country has to look like, the administration should look like the American public.
I want to switch gears and ask you
Sure you
about
do.
what happened the other day.
Sure you do. Now, she's an NPR co-host, very liberal, not a Trumper. And he's got this fake laugh, right?
At your town hall, because you got a lot of attention for it. A man stood up and started throwing false allegations your way.
They weren't false. See, they weren't false. We now know all the shit about Hunter Biden, right? Convicted felon that he pardoned. He ended up pardoning his son. So they weren't false, right?
About your son Hunter Biden and his work in Ukraine and your work as vice president then in Ukraine. And you responded by...
So this is pre the laptop, right? Which we ended up realizing that they censored the laptop story on social media and other places before Biden was president and started to really censor social media. So this is, this is all played out. We know Hunter Biden's a piece of shit. We know the laptop came out. Then this is all, been confirmed. She's not asking as a real, this isn't a gotcha question. because she's saying false accusations, which they weren't. The guy was not articulate, and he was old, and he couldn't. He had his own mental problems because there's two old guys who neither one can think having an argument, right? They're both babbling because they both. He has Parkinson's, the other guy has whatever he has, right?
By calling him a damn liar, and then you challenged him to push-ups, and then you asked him for an IQ test?
No, he came along, he always said, he said he's entitled to do this. He said, you're too old. He said, you're too old. I can't vote for somebody as old as you. I said, okay. And he was challenging what kind of shape. So I kidded. I said, want to do a push-up contest?
You were angry. Like, he's making it sound, we saw what happened there. He was angry. He wasn't like, hey, you want to do, hey buddy, hey, pal, let's do a push-up. Like, you're fucking, old as fuck, both of you guys, right?
I was joking. Look, I'm in pretty good
Which is
shape.
what Donald Trump says a lot. Hey, you can't take a joke. I was joking.
No.
But the point I
Don't
bring it
compare me to Donald Trump.
But people
Don't
did.
do
At
that.
the town hall, it was
No,
just
they
that.
didn't.
Yes, they did.
See, look at how angry he is. He's lost it. Like, he's not supposed to get angry. He got angry at the town hall, and when he compared him to Donald Trump, and they're very similar. They have very similar personality profiles, psychologically. They have different, beliefs, supposedly, but they're very similar. They're very fucking similar. And he gets mad, just like Trump gets mad if you compare him to Biden. But they're, remember they were debating who was a better golfer, right, years later. So think about all the things that happened since then. But this is what he gets angry. He sticks his finger in the face in a threatening way. Don't do this. We'll go back here.
And he was challenging what kind of shape. So I kidded. I said, want to do a push-up contest? I was joking. Look, I'm in pretty good
Which is
shape.
what Donald Trump says a lot. Hey, you can't take a joke. I was joking.
No.
But the point I
Don't
bring it up.
compare me to Donald Trump.
But people
Don't
did.
do
At
that.
the town hall, it was
No,
just
they
that.
didn't.
Yes, they did.
Well,
No, they didn't. He said, no, they didn't. Well, what? You talked to everybody there?
Said to me, the woman you met at the end, 94-year-old Mary, said to me, I was so disappointed in him. This is a direct quote. That is not the Joe I know. He sounded like Donald Trump in that clip.
Well, look, what Donald Trump says, he makes fun of people. He belittles people. He lies.
You just did that to the guy. He's gone, right? He's mentally gone. He's rearranging this event. He was belittling this guy, and he lies that he's lying about it. Like, he's literally doing what Donald Trump does here. And again, he doesn't have a grasp of it. This is why they pulled him. They wouldn't let him campaign in 2020 because he was a disaster.
I don't do any of those things, period. The fact of the matter is this guy stood up and he was in fact lying. And I just pointed out, you're a liar. It's a fact. He lied, period. And so, maybe I shouldn't have kidded with him about that, let's do push-ups. It's like I was out here in a parade, a 4th of July parade.
But I think people's point was, in this time when you talk about needing to restore civility, it's so important to so many people.
That's not civil? To call someone who
Call
lied a
someone
liar?
a damn liar, a voter. This isn't
A
Trump,
voter.
President
But he's
Trump.
lying. He's lying. You acknowledge what he said wasn't even true. None of the mainstream media believes any of that was true.
I think it was the tone. I think it was the tone that was off-putting to people.
As my mother said, God love you, dear.
I have to ask you about...
That's so condescending. But see, this is what happens when you press somebody who's not mentally functioning. So this is 2019. Do you think this guy should be president? He's old as fuck. I mean, just look at him. And so this is, the Parkinson's was already setting in. And the more campaigning he did, the more he fell apart. And there was just all these examples of it. He was just too far gone. And it doesn't get better. Like, it wasn't like he was going to get cured of Parkinson's. Dementia doesn't get better as you get older, right? And so they were setting up what I said was a nightmare. In some point of its presidency, there was 2 hand grenades. His senility, his Parkinson's, and Kamala Harris's unelectability, and they both went off in 2024, right? They both blew up in the middle of the election when everyone realized Kamala Harris was unlikable and that Joe Biden was senile and he had really Parkinson's, he had dementia. And so, this was not some new news for these guys at CNN. And then there's this other one here. Let's show you that one. Man, you are actually trying to end our Second Amendment right to take away our guns. He said you're full of shit. I did not know. Shush, shush, shush. I support the Second Amendment. Just like the right now, if you yell fire, that's not. So he says, he shushes this person, who's his campaign person. So he shushes somebody. You know, this is him. He's failing under pressure, right? He's with all these factory workers, and some of them aren't into Democratic policies because they're Republicans, and they're worried about the Second Amendment in this case. And he shushes somebody. Look, he says, you're full of shit, and shushes somebody. Let me go back to a little bit. A little bit more. My son's hunt. His sons are dead. He's got one son. He's got Hunter Biden, who has, you know, Hunter Biden ends up leaving a handgun with his dead brother's widow, and you know they're dating. He's banging his dead brother's widow. She's freaked out that Hunter Biden's going to kill himself. She takes his handgun, a loaded handgun, drops it in the trash. It ends up next to a high school, and some homeless guy takes it. The Secret Service got involved and had to track down the gun, right? And then he had another weapons charge that was unrelated to that. Like his son was not somebody who should have a gun. The other one was dead because Joe Biden wanted him to be, you know, the good one. Bo was supposed to be his successor. Bo was supposed to be like a candidate for, you know, Senate and maybe president someday. And they put him in the military so he gets some cred. But Joe Biden said all the toxic waste they were burning over there killed his son with brain cancer. So he doesn't have sons. He says, my son's son. No, you're one son. You have one son.
You're not allowed to own anyway. I'm not taking your gun away at all. You need 100 rounds and you I did not say that. That's not true. I did not say that.
Look at how angry he's getting. I did not say that. I did not say that. Sounds like the guy from The Room. I did not say that. I did not say them. Hi, Mark. Right? Okay, there's another. Let's find the other one about this. There's another angle for this. And there he ends up threatening the guy, said he wants to take the guy outside. So here's another angle. You're full of shit. He comes out straight out, says it. He says you're wait, it goes up here. Up here.
Video like the other ones you're putting out that are simply a lie.
He just clarified it.
Wait. Take the AR-14s and look at it.
It says AR-14s. He doesn't know it's an AR-15. He says, don't try me, pal. So look at him, he's getting all like he's going to fight him with Secret Service all around him.
There's a lot of guys.
You're pushing up on me.
I'm not worried.
You're pushing up on me. Now he's getting in his face. He's like physically aggressive. This is supposed to be a campaign event, right? And his people, his handlers, know, oh my God, this guy's a nightmare. And they're already they've already pushed this guy. They have no way. They're like, who are we going to get instead of him? Beto O'Rourke, right? That guy was just slam Biden. You know, he's come out in my last video. I talked about that.
Are you able to I said, are you able to own one? That's right. AR-15s are legal. How is that a machine gun? No, it's not. Yeah,
so he doesn't know AR-15s are semi-automatic, and they're not illegal. He says, I'm going to take your AR-15s. The guy says it's not okay. And he's just telling him, Joe Biden's schooling him on this thing. Joe Biden should know. He's pushing to take these things away, that it's not a machine gun, it's semi-automatic.
You need 100 rounds? You need 100 rounds?
In America with handguns that are what you call assault rifles. Why are you advocating for assault rifles when people are dying by handguns?
Okay, let's...
There's some point he said you want to step outside. I don't know if it's... maybe it's back here. I don't know if it said here.
Anyway, I'm not taking that gun away at all. You need 100 rounds? I I did not say that. That's not true. I did not say that. It's a viral video like the other ones you're putting out that are simply a lie.
Well, he just clarified it.
Wait.
Anyways, maybe that was a different video, but like he's getting physically aggressive. He's getting intimidated. He's getting close to the guys. He's bowing up on him, right? And that's all because his mental decline. And they knew this. They couldn't let this guy campaign. This was all in a short period of time. He wasn't even doing that many events. They were already handling him. And he still couldn't fucking do it. I found it here on Stephen Colbert. But it's much better audio, right? But I can't use the whole clip because CBS sucks at copywriting. But here he says this to him. I'll just turn the volume down here.
Not okay. Hold on, all right? Hey, let's
There's a lot of...
I'll go out and I'll slap you in the face. Don't tell me that, pal, or I'm going to go out and slap you in the face. Stephen Colbert, who's a Joe Biden shill, and they're actually trying to pump Joe Biden up like he's, a little bit in this clip. It starts off where he does a bit of, like they show Bernie Sanders, Trump, and Joe Biden all in like carts because they're too old to walk. Like they're already talking about this being some geriatric runoff. But he says he's going to slap him in the face. And so, they edited those things out at different places. Like I can't even find this whole clip. You can see this is the best audio. But this is why his campaign's like, we can't run this guy and take you outside and slap you in the face, right? Like he's saying that because the guy just asked him about, a gun grabbing, which is every Democrat knows that that's a possibility, that you're going to be asked those questions. Like every Democrat knows they have to, that people are going to talk to them about gun control because the NRA is very powerful and there's a lot of people who don't want gun grabbing. It's a big thing with Americans, as everybody knows. And every Democrat tries to show that they own guns. He's already said that he's a hunter and that him and his sons, his dead son and his other son, the crackhead, are hunters. One of them's named Hunter, and he owns a shotgun and another, whatever else gun he owns, right? And you see these guys, Bill Clinton firing guns, like they all want to show you they own guns, like every Democrat does. So it's a thing they know it's going to happen. You're going into a factory in Michigan. There's going to be some Second Amendment people there. They might ask you questions, Joe. Don't threaten to slap them in the fucking face and take them outside and slap them in the face. Okay, please don't do that because that's counterproductive here.
AR-14s.
Okay, this is not okay. Hold on, all right? Hey, let's
There's a lot of guys.
Boom. And so that's, fuck, right? So this is the killer. This is from 10 years ago. This is 2015. It's 4 years before he ran in 2020, 2019, 5 years before the election in 2020. And so, this is a CNN report called Biden's presidential candidacy questioned after Gaffs.
Vice President Biden in the key primary state of New Hampshire today.
Much of the country's future will depend on the policies we choose in the next 2, 4, 6 years.
After recent travels to the early contest states of Iowa and South Carolina. But Biden's latest gaffes are stealing the spotlight away from speculation about his presidential aspirations.
So this is Breanna Keeler. She is currently working at CNN. Jake Tapper's one of his co-workers. And CNN is told to do a hit piece on Joe Biden. So they knew this guy wasn't up to be running for president in 2015, 16, right? This is right before the campaign's going to start. They've handpicked Hillary Clinton. She has, she's the Barack Obama's Secretary of State, and Biden's his vice president. And so they both have name recognition and some backing, and they're both potential presidential candidates. But Obama is picking Hillary, and she's going to pass out. She's already passed out 5 or 6 times, and she's going to pass out, remember, a couple of times on the campaign trail. She is likely an alcoholic. People said she had kuru because she was a cannibal, but I think she was an alcoholic. She was always drinking. There's multiple events you can see her drinking, doing shots. I mean, like heavy drinking. And she likes her alcohol. She played a bartender on Saturday Night Live. It's like she's into booze, possibly an alcoholic, but she passed out a number of times. Passed out, broke her arm. Like they had to carry her to her car. And so they picked her over Biden. Why did they pick somebody who's physically breaking down over somebody who's, older, a little bit older than she is, and Biden, who's going to, was a gaffe magnet and a nightmare. And CNN is making sure that he doesn't run. Like CNN, the same way they shilled for him in 2020 and ignored all his bullshit, they're calling him on it here.
For their trust.
Like his strange hold on Defense Secretary Ash Carter's wife, Stephanie, and this claim about Somali immigrants in his hometown of Wilmington, Delaware.
So a groper. First, he's a groper.
It's a large, very identifiable Somali community. There's an awful lot who are driving cabs, and are friends of mine, for real. I'm not being solicitous. I'm being serious.
And it turns out factually incorrect. Only 15 Somalis live in the entire state, according to the Census Bureau. And Wilmington cab drivers told CNN they knew of no Somalis driving taxis.
So he's a liar. He's a lying piece of shit. He just makes up stories just like a plagiarizer, which he was before. But also, CNN's fact-checking him. Did they fact-check him in 2020 and call him on his bullshit? No. They supported this guy when everyone knew that he wasn't up to it mentally, right? Again, 10 years ago.
No one is asked to respond to every time Joe Biden says something, and he says something every day that people should be responding to.
Marco Rubio, who is considering a run for president, and other Republicans are incensed. And on late-night TV, Biden has become a punchline.
Ever heard of a second lady?
Okay, so let's go back here a second because I want to hear this part. But on the Daily Show, they had the audacity of grope, which was a knock. Was a joke of Obama's audacity of hope. And they did a whole hit piece on him groping women, right? Which we only see a part of it from the mainstream media. But I went back to the 2015 and 2016 swearing-in ceremonies, and I made a 2-hour video. I don't know where it is now. I might have it like on some kind of a, external hard drive. But I mean, I would put it in here, but who cares? But he was just groping and mauling all these young women, right? And so. Now he's a groper. So what do they get him at, right? In the beginning, he's a groper. Then they tell him he's a liar, and they're fact-checking him. And now they're talking about his gaffes, and then also his groping again.
The missteps are nothing new. Over the years, Biden's become known for them.
Inappropriate.
He's taken criticism for some, like this one, talking to a largely African-American audience about Mitt Romney in 2012.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
Racially inappropriate.
But often his handsiness and comments
No DC-30
are likened to those of a crazy but lovable uncle.
Crazy. Is he crazy or is he senile? Is he, he's just a little bit old. He's got a dementia.
As they veer toward the more bizarre variety, it's raising questions about appropriate behavior for someone eyeing the White House. And with Biden a distant second to Hillary Clinton in polls of Democratic hopefuls, suggestions that Biden isn't a serious contender. Judging by his joke last night at a Black History Month event, maybe even Biden realizes that.
Maybe maybe the senile fuck with Parkinson's even realizes it. Everyone else realizes he's not a serious candidate. But maybe even Joe, I mean, we don't know because the guy's fucked in the head. Maybe this fucking guy realizes it, right? Maybe even Joe.
Last night at a Black History Month event, maybe even Biden realizes that.
I'm going to be in that room if anybody wants to photograph. I would not blame you if you didn't.
That was just one of his goofy jokes. It wasn't because he's saying I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. Like he's just trying to be self-deprecating and he's so narcissistic. And so CNN knew. Like everyone knows. They all fucking know, right? It's not like they don't know, right? They all fucking know. And so that's Jojo Magoo. I mean, he was just a mess. And CNN, let's go back to this thing with Jake Tapper. But him saying, that this guy had access to it, this district attorney, had access to Joe Biden and saw him for long periods of time and saw Joe Biden break down the way he would break down with his staff and his handlers. You didn't need that. You didn't need it now. Like, you guys are late to the party. It's 2025. You guys, 10 years ago, you had this guy pegged. And now you're saying, well, we didn't know. I mean, he just got dementia in 2024. No, fuck you. How are we going to know? Like, you're reporters, for Christ's sakes. You were told not to pay attention to this thing until it got so fucking bad he's melting down in debates, and George Clooney's telling him, is writing op-eds about him because he doesn't know who George Clooney is after George Clooney raised a record amount of money for him, some Hollywood shindig, and the guy was falling apart because he just came from some summit and they couldn't put him back together again. But the guy is, he was senile in 2015, and, he was showing signs of his Parkinson's was setting in. And then by 2019, he was even more unelectable. And they ignored it. And then they hit him in 2020 with COVID. And, and so let's get back to it here. They have the gall to say, they're like, Jake Tapper's pretending he's like breaking a story. Like we talked about in this truth community 5 years before you guys even thought to mention it, right?
So that's what the part that I was talking about. He's not clear of dates. He's not clear on when Bo died, when Donald Trump won the presidency, when he lived in Virginia. And this is what Robert Hur heard, and why it was so significant is so few people were able to have access to President Biden like this for hours at a time when he was showing this less than optimally functioning Joe Biden.
Okay, so I'm not showing you all the things. I mean, there's so many clips I have. I mean, those are old clips, and then I have the ones from his presidency. And there's so many gaffes and things people sent me. I didn't even get to cover all the things people sent me. Right? I mean, there's probably 50 videos that include the crazy stuff that Joe Biden said or did. And, all of it. So, it's all there. And he's making it sound like there isn't a mountain of evidence that this guy was fucked in the head. I mean, even before he got Parkinson's, he was not electable. He really wasn't a president. He ran for president 3 times, and the American people said no to the Democrats. And the Democrats said no. Like, he never made it as a candidate. He was never a serious candidate. He never polled in double digits. No one thought he should be president. And then all of a sudden they rolled him out, maybe because they knew he'd be the ultimate puppet. Who knows what their motivation was? And everybody went along with it. And now they're pretending that they had, only that guy was with him for so long. That's, we saw it. Every time Joe Biden opened his fucking mouth, there's so many people were covering his dementia, right? This wasn't, for them to come out and say all these things. So there's this guy who counted Donald Trump's lies and gumballs. I call him the gumball guy. He's one of my favorite CNN people. He now has his own show. And then Saturday I taped this. This is Jake. He has Jake Tapper back on. He's going to show you the same clips, and I want to go through the clips. And then at the end of this, I'll put in that piece I did before a couple days ago about the MSNBC video about him having Parkinson's. And then I'll save, a portion of this video as the end of this video as, just like a compilation. But I only am scratching the surface. You can go and search any of Joe Biden's moments where he's senior moments and compilations, and you'll find, hundreds of clips of it. Every time he went out, he did something that questioned his senility, his mental capabilities to be president.
About the state of former President Joe Biden's physical and mental capabilities during his time in office. Friday, Axios published audio of then President Biden's interview with former special counsel Robert Hur. All of this was surrounding the now closed probe over Biden's handling of classified documents. This interview happened in October of 2023. Transcripts of those discussions were made public last year, but these are the first audio recordings of the interview to be made public. One portion of the interview here, Biden has trouble recalling dates, including when President Trump was elected. Watch this.
And Trump gets elected in November of 2017, 2016. All right. So, 2017 here.
That's when you left office, in January.
Yeah, okay. But that's when Trump gets sworn in.
Right, correct.
Okay, yeah.
So he's being helped like a person who doesn't have a good mind. Like you'd help your grandfather remember events, right? He has this all the time. People around him. I don't know if that's his lawyer or it's this guy Robert Hur, and the guy's like, "What? Why do I have 2017 written down here? Why I don't get it? What?" And so he doesn't have a time frame for any of these dates, so he can't answer questions of what he did with these classified documents because he's fucking brain dead, right? He's got Parkinson's. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
Jake Tapper has more for us.
What we hear from these excerpts of the Hur Report interview in October 8th and October 9th, 2023, is a President Biden who is not functioning the way one would want and expect a President of the United States to be able to function. He's having difficulty with dates. He loses his train of thought quite a bit. You might remember also the President Biden asserted executive privilege to block these audio tapes from coming out even after the transcripts have been released. The transcripts released right before Robert Hur testified before Congress were buried in a lot of the coverage of Hur's testimony, where he was attacked by Democrats for his apparently offensive characterization of President Biden as somebody who he was not going to prosecute for mishandling documents because Robert Hur said he would come across to a jury as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory, when of course that is, if anything, a charitable version of how Biden comes across.
So he's saying the Democrats attacked Joe Biden, but you guys attacked all of us when we said Joe Biden was senile, right? So when I said 2019, we were censored and all these things, and mainstream media, no, he's not, and you had all these people, oh, but he's a whiz in the office, behind the scenes and meetings and all this bullshit. I mean, they did it, a year ago, 2024, in January. There was a poll out, and 70% of Americans said he was unfit mentally. People like Stephen A. Smith and dopes like that started to jump on the bandwagon and say Joe Biden is mentally unfit, right? But it was, we were doing this way beforehand. I could see it. Like, you could see it years and years ago. He was breaking down mentally, and these guys all knew it. And to say that, you guys all gaslit the rest of us to pretending this guy wasn't fucking mentally impaired. I used to say, would you have this guy drive your school bus, or would you want this guy driving? They showed him with his Corvette. He had this big fancy Corvette, and some old redone refurbished Corvette. And I was like, you can't allow this guy to drive. He doesn't have the capacity. He's not mentally functioning. And everyone knew it. Like, everybody fucking knew it.
In these tapes, we also have to remember that this is during the period of time when his close aides and family members start really sequestering him off from even members of his own cabinet, administration, Democratic officials, donors, because of these moments of non-functioning Biden that are happening with an increased frequency. I want to throw to another clip. This one is a clip of when Robert Hur, who is investigating mishandling of documents by President Biden, then former Vice President Biden in 2017, 2018, wants to ask him about this period where he moves from the vice president's residence to a house on Chainbridge Road in Virginia. And that is where the conversation begins. Let's roll that clip.
I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying.
So he gets those dates drastically wrong, but he's being manipulative here, right? He's saying, my son, my tragic son, he was died. I don't know what I was doing back then. I can imagine what it was like for me that my son was deployed and he died during that period, which is neither one of those things is true. He had died in 2015 and he was deployed in 2008, which Jake Tapper will talk about here. So it wasn't even close to the dates, right? These are towards the end of his vice presidency. And he can't remember what he's done with it. He doesn't have a time frame for any of these things. Like, his mind's gone. But he's being manipulative. My son, remember my heroic son who deployed to Afghanistan and, thank you for your service. And then he died of brain cancer because of the stuff that I can't prove, the toxic smoke that he inhaled there. And, even though he pushed his son out there. Remember, Hunter Biden was pissed because Hunter Biden had to go out and do scumbag shit with scumbags to get money to support Joe Biden's candidacy, and his brother, he had to pay his brother's college bills, his tuition, right? Like he had to go out and make money doing scumbag stuff while Joe Biden and his brother remained squeaky clean. But then his brother Beau dies, and then Hunter Biden's the little guy left holding the bag with all these things, right? The money laundering stuff and the rest of it. But, he's being manipulative here, right? I mean, let's bring my son into it, my dead son, my heroic said dead son into this. Like this guy's asking him questions about him breaking the law, doing, committing a felony. And he's bringing up, he's misremembering the dates. He isn't a clue of what was 2017, right? What's going on there? Why do I have 2017 written down here? My son, my dead son. Remember that was going on at that time. My son was either deploying or getting killed or dying. I don't know, one of those things. Well, 2008 and 2015 is a 7-year gap. Like he didn't deploy and die at the same time, and it wasn't in 2017.
My son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period.
Okay, so he's talking about 2017 where he's just finished his 8 years as Barack Obama's vice president, right? So he's asked about 2017, and maybe he thinks 2007, but he thinks he's still in the Senate. And he's thinking that he went from the Senate to running for president against Trump. Well, I just got out of the Senate. It's really the vice presidency. And I just got out of the Senate, and people were encouraging me to run for president. No, they weren't. Your wife, a few other people, some handlers. Nobody wanted you to run in 2015. They fucking did a hit piece on you to get you not to run. Like, it's so fucked up, right? He's so clueless. And, it's not like this is news. We knew this fucking years ago. I mean, it got worse over time, sure. But it was, was always there.
And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period.
So what you heard there is Robert Hur just trying to talk about the investigative matter at hand, which is when Joe Biden shared these classified documents with others. But Vice President Biden is unable to figure out when this time period is. 2017 to 2018, he says, you have to remember that's when my son Beau was either deployed or dying. Now, Beau's death is obviously tragic, but that happened in 2015, not 2017, 2018. And Beau deployed in 2008, 2009. So he really doesn't have a grasp on dates, even dates surrounding one of the most important, significant, and traumatizing events of his life, the death of his son Beau in May 2015. And you might remember later on when the Hur report comes out, and Robert Hur explains to the world that while he thinks President Biden mishandled classified information, he isn't going to prosecute him because he would come across as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. President Biden blames Robert Hur for bringing up Beau's death. Robert Hur, as you heard, did not bring up Beau's death. And yet the Democratic establishment, led by President Biden, also Vice President Kamala Harris and others, went after Robert Hur for that false assertion, but also for characterizing President Biden in a way that, frankly, seems rather charitable.
So this district attorney, Hur, released the transcripts, and, he said that he wasn't going to prosecute this guy, which you've already heard over and over again here. And Joe Biden and his team go off. He says he's not going to prosecute it because he's a doty old dude. He's not going to get a conviction. He's sympathetic. He's a sympathetic, senile fuck, right? And this was when they were already. I mean, he's fallen off of his bike and he's walking upstairs. They have to make the stairs shorter than him because of his Parkinson's gait, the way that he walked. And I showed you the Parkinson's guy, by a couple of videos ago. Maybe I'll find that clip and put it at the end. I'll put it at the end of this whole thing. For my previous video on this. But, the guy's falling apart, right? And, the Biden administration goes off, and then he lies about the stuff to do with his son here.
There's even reference that I don't remember when my son died. How in the hell dare he raise that?
How dare he? Like, he's not the one who raised it. You did. And, you saw it. He didn't know. And he was, he's conflating not only his son dying, but when he enlisted, he was using it as an emotionally manipulative tool, which I said earlier. And so, he's been being manipulative and being a piece of shit about it. And then he comes out and he's like, oh, how dare they?
When my son died. How in the hell dare he raise that? Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, wasn't any of their damn business.
He didn't ask about his son dying. So he doesn't even remember the conversation, right? It's none of their damn business. You're the one who brought up your son to manipulate the interviewer in some greasy way, and you didn't know any of the days, right? Like, you're gone. And they're like, oh, they needed this guy to tell. Well, we saw it. We all saw it. Okay, so this just popped up on my phone. It's actually from a week ago. But I want to add something here.
Jake Tapper here. Alex Thompson from Axios and I wrote a book. It's coming out next Tuesday. It's called Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. The book...
His disastrous choice to run again, it isn't his choice. So somebody who is that far gone mentally, who has dementia, I mean, you see him all the time trying to rearrange reality. Like going back to that debate with Kamala Harris and when Cory Booker was holding his feet to the fire about him being a part of the whole, marijuana thing. And Joe Biden said that he had all this support amongst the black community, including the first African-American, the only African-American senator. And then when Cory Booker and Kamala Harris are laughing at him, he goes, I said the first. No, you didn't, Joe. But he believes he said the first because he's like, part of that's being a liar, but mostly that's being him not, he got all confused looking, he did all that shit. And so, you saw this over and over with him where he would make mistakes and he would just, and I don't think he was lying. I mean, not that he doesn't lie, he lied quite a bit, but he doesn't understand, he doesn't comprehend. And so someone who can't comprehend isn't aware of their mental decline. Like he was always saying how sharp he was. I mean, I think he thought, how hurt he was when they ditched him, that he screwed the Democratic Party for Kamala. I mean, he really felt like they betrayed him. And he kept on saying over and over again, but look at all that we've accomplished. Instead of saying, oh, I'll take a cognitive test. Because, he thought that he didn't need to take a cognitive test, right? So you can't say it was his idea to run again, that he knew he was senile, but he was going to run anyway, right? It's like this goofiness these guys are trying to, blame him and certainly some of his supporters in the Democratic Party, but mostly him, and it wasn't his fault. He's a person with Alzheimer is never culpable for their bad decisions.
The book is drawn from more than 200 interviews with mostly Democratic insiders, almost all of them after the election. And one of the things we were shocked to learn, the White House physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, talked about how if Biden had one more fall, he might actually need to be in a wheelchair. But this was...
So that speaks to the Parkinson's part. That, again, it was his gait. He walked strangely. This is a neurological issue that doesn't have to do with dementia. Alzheimer's people, they don't have this kind of walk, right? It's a hallmark of the... And again, you'll see this in this guy, this doctor. But we all saw how he walked very stiffly, and it was getting worse. And that walk itself, I used to joke about calling this Thorazine shuffle. My ex-girlfriend, who was a nurse, worked at a psych hospital, and they would put these patients on Thorazine, and they would walk like that. Would fuck around with their neurological, their ability to walk in a normal fashion. And so, the guy is obviously, this didn't happen overnight. He was great in 2000. and 23 or 22, somewhere between 22 and 23, he fell off a cliff. No. Like, we all saw this early on.
It was all put off until after the election. They did not want images of Biden in a wheelchair out there. You might recall that Biden started to have problems with a shuffling gait that the administration was very sensitive about. There was a time when they started having people walk with him to Marine One. Those people were there to kind of like hide the fact that his gait was as bad as it was, and also have them there in case he stumbled.
Yeah, and the gait was because of Parkinson's.
The White House would say that this gait issue was because Biden had fallen after the election of 2020, but the truth is that it didn't have to do with that. Dr. O'Connor's medical report said that that injury was completely healed. This had to do with other degenerative problems.
Yeah, Parkinson's. As you say, Parkinson's in the book, which would mean that, he didn't get Parkinson's in 2020. He got Parkinson's, years ago. It takes a while for it to degenerate. He got it when he was vice president. And so, for a number of years. Like, he has later stage Parkinson's, according to this doctor coming out. Let's get into that here. Okay, so this is a monster video. It has 1.4 million views for MSNBC. They don't average, hundreds of thousands of views is a big video. Oh, anything over 100,000 views is a big video for these clowns over there, CNN and MSNBC. This one has 1.4 million. So 1.4 million saw this, and nobody talks about it. Like, no one else talks about this, right?
To talk more about those 8 White House visits by the Parkinson's expert, I'm joined tonight by Dr. Tom Pitts. He's a quadruple board-certified neurologist. He sees...
Oh, yeah, they had 8 visits by a Parkinson's expert. So a Parkinson's expert came to check out Joe Biden 8 times, right? And they dismissed it by saying the guy was just a neurologist and it was just neurology stuff. But this guy, here, let me just...
Patients with Parkinson's all the time. He diagnoses it. I want to be completely transparent here. You've never examined President Biden. From my knowledge, you've never even spoken yet to President Biden.
Been in the same room as
and we're just going to use what we have so far, which is what we've seen, the president's interviews, and the information coming out of the White House. So my first question to you is, as somebody who's a neurologist, what you've seen from the president over the last 2 years, what you saw at the debate, the last few interviews, the way he speaks, the way maybe he walks. Have you noticed anything that gives you a red flag as a doctor?
Oh, yeah, I see him 20 times a day in clinic. I mean, it's ironic because he has just such classic features of neurodegeneration. I mean, word finding difficulties, and that's not, I couldn't find the word. That's from degeneration of the word retrieval area.
He's also overcome stuttering, though. Could that be part
Jesus Christ. This guy's the worst interviewer.
That too?
No, this is not a palatal issue or a speech discrepancy, which is very different from a lemino dysfunction, actual word retrieval, where you pick a similar question or talk around the issue, plus the rigidity, monotone voice.
Wait, go back to that, the rigidity. What do you mean?
Rigidity, lots of arm swing, standing up lordically. You notice when he turns, it's kind of end block turning. It's not a quick turn. So that's one of the hallmarks.
See, they have all these terms, right? Let's go back to who's going to say this.
That's one of the hallmarks of Parkinsonism is rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice that said was a cold. Hypophonia, a small monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
Here are some of the...
So, clearly has Parkinson's, right? Based in this expert. They brought a Parkinson's guy in to examine him. And, when you work with these things, like whatever you do for a job, like there are things that I can recognize when I look at my Premiere Pro app. I can, like there's these, there's the audio track has these lines, these things where it shows they'll show you how like there'll be some times I'll be speaking with more volume, right? And that'll be a burst of volume. And you can see it, right, when you look at it. And I can look at it and see where I might cough, where I might laugh. Like, you just get used to seeing the patterns. I have dyslexia, and, that's a whole thing, But in general, you just, you get better at things. And you recognize things, right? When you work in an expert as a field in the medical community, I worked for years in treatment centers. And you work with a certain type of people. You're married to somebody with certain kind of conditions. You have people in your life who have conditions, and you kind of become an expert on that thing, right? Time and experience and effort makes you just know things better than someone who is just looking at it from the outside. And somebody who works with Parkinson's would just know. And this guy does. And the stuff that he's saying, everything that he's saying, there's terms for it, right? They have all these words, the various things, the symptom diagnoses. And Biden has all of these things, right?
The symptoms from Parkinson's. We just had him up there on the screen. If we can put him back. What about the movement? Some people have pointed out the way he walks. Sometimes it's not very fast, small steps. Is that something that is common in people who are battling a disease like Parkinson's?
Yeah, it's a hallmark. Shuffling gait, we call that, so little steps. Loss of arm swing from the rigidity. When we walk, we have a nice cadence. You notice he doesn't really swing his arms. And end block turning, meaning he kind of pivots around his foot. If you said, hey, President Biden, he wouldn't go like this. Yeah.
But I also know, and tell me if I'm wrong here, it's very hard to diagnose Parkinson's, isn't it? It's not simple. I mean, I've heard that it can be.
It's one of the easier movement disorders to diagnose, actually.
Right,
but it's so clinic. There's very little other. And I'm a Democrat. I always say about this.
This is a great part. 'Cause this guy's trying to throw shade on it, right? Isn't it hard to diagnose Parkinson's? When you can diagnose somebody by looking at him. There's other things you have to take tests for. There's psychological conditions you need, psychological testing and some limited interaction, right? But like if you could just look at somebody based in their movements and see, he says he sees this 100 times a day in his clinic. He works with Parkinson's people that do the exact same shit that Biden's doing.
Right.
It's just like, this guy is not a hard case.
But I've had relatives who have gone through neurological issues, and I've heard that sometimes Parkinson's is not very easy to nail. You have to take a lot of tests.
It's early on. If you're just presented with like hallucinations, that could be a variety of things, or just the cognitive problems. That could be Alzheimer's versus Parkinsonism, and that becomes a little nebulous. But once you start manifesting the hallmark motor symptoms,
right?
Slow movement, rigidity, mass facies, hypophonia. I mean, if a med student did not pick Parkinson's on the test, they'd be remediated.
So let me ask you,
So they said if a med student looked at Joe Biden and didn't pick Parkinson's for this, they would be like, yeah, you're not suited to be a doctor. Like it's.
And I know you have no idea what happened in the White House, but a neurologist coming 8 times in 8 months, does that tell you anything? Is that? I mean, I know you're just sort of speculating here, but does that tell you anything?
He's not speculating.
No.
Well, I mean, I don't know if they're like the best of friends or something, but that's a very specific, he's a movement disorder. That's a subspecialist in exactly what he has. And there's very few young people, like a Marine Guard. Most people would be med boarded out.
Oh, remember they said a Marine Guard, the guy came in to see a Marine Guard, one of his guards that might have Parkinson's, and is guarding President Biden with a movement disorder, right?
Any type of movement disorder at a young age. Like if you had Huntington's chorea, early onset Parkinson's, dystonia, bad essential tremor, you're usually med boarded out. So I highly doubt there's.
What does that mean, med boarded out?
Med boarded, mean the military would not let you, if you have seizures, for example, you cannot usually be in the military. That is, you are
so
medical
you're saying you don't necessarily believe, and they're not saying this, but they said there's thousands of military members that go to the White House that are treated there for health reasons.
Yeah.
You're not buying that that's a random military person.
No, that would be very odd to just see a random movement disorder case at the White House, especially a young guard. There aren't many young people that have movement disorders that could be in the military.
And then, a lot of people have called.
Just silly. Then they're using a military person here. It's like, oh, you don't insult the troops. Like, it's like one of those, it's so manipulative.
For a cognitive test. What exactly would that entail? What does that mean?
Now, that's the key, because word finding retrieval doesn't necessarily mean you don't know what you want to say. What I cannot comment on is his ability to make good decisions. His motor symptoms are degenerating. He has Parkinsonism. That is a fact. He has degeneration of the brain. Show me the MRI. Show me he doesn't. Put your money where your mouth is. He definitely has it. But the problem is, when you look at his situation, you can't say, oh, I know for a fact that because he didn't retrieve the word, he didn't know what he wanted to say. And that's why both him and Trump should take the 4-hour neuropsychological testing, which is the hallmark test for cognitive performance.
What do you do in this test?
A lot of things. So, for example, they may have you say,
Okay, so he goes into how Trump takes these little fake tests, and they have these 4-hour tests, right? Which all these guys should take. Like all these people over a certain age, or if you're showing signs, certainly Fetterman, these other people. I mean, they all should probably just take it, just to make it non-discriminatory. And it's just, you're making big decisions, and you also want to make sure you're not being run by your handlers. Like, that's the big thing, right? So Joe Biden was clearly not president, and we know from that other guy, the Johnson, whatever his name is, Bob Johnson, Howard Johnson, I don't know, the guy who's in charge of the House of Representatives. He met with Biden, and Biden's people were all there, Kamala Harris and the various Chuck Schumer and his various cabinet members. And the guy knew that it was a setup, right? And so the guy wanted to talk to Biden about a specific thing that he passed. It was going to be hard for his state, Louisiana, I believe he's from. And he, Biden was like, yeah, I didn't pass a bill. This is what the bill said. And it was not what the bill actually said. And the guy said, no, this is what the bill actually said. And Biden was arguing with him. Biden didn't know what he signed. And this was like, a year ago. I mean, a year before the whole thing. This guy just got elected when they took over the House. And Biden had to meet with him. And so, we know that Biden wasn't doing his job because he had handlers. And the same thing with Mitch McConnell. Same thing with Fetterman. When somebody is not cognitively able to do their job. And Trump being lied to. I mean, Trump is being isolated, and he only watches Fox News. And, he's got a team of people, and he's not being told all the information. Like, a lot of times, these guys don't know what we know. They know less than we know because they're being isolated and they're mentally fucked in the head, right? And so this shows you politics is an absolute fucking joke. And this is across the board. Trump taking this plane at the same time as this book coming out. I've talked about this. I knew this 10 years ago. I knew this when I was a little kid, but it's gotten way worse since then. It's all political theater. It's so degraded. And it is just, an absolute, it's an absolute mess, right? Okay, so let me wrap the video up here. So I'm also going to turn this into a long compilation that, I don't know how much I'll use this ever again, but I have a reference point now. I have all these things. You know how many times I've watched some of these video clips? Like the Cory Booker thing, so many times I've had to go back and find these clips, and they're all in one place now, and I could just slap the whole video in there. But this isn't all I know, and I don't know probably, 1% of the public times Joe Biden has done something that would indicate that he has cognitive issues, right? And there's a lot of things that this isn't, most of the stuff I showed you here were things that happened before he was president, and then a few of these things afterwards. But there's just all these things that falling down on the bike, the things that, you guys have all seen over and over again. And it was fairly obvious. And so what Jake Tapper is trying to do here in the CNN is, make themselves look like they are truth tellers. And they're the only ones who are willing to say Joe Biden was senile and the Democratic Party fucked us and themselves. This is the issue. It wasn't a problem that existed in 2024 when they had to ditch Biden and go with Kamala. It was a grenade they gave to the Democratic Party in 2019 or 20 when Joe Biden became the nominee and he picked Kamala Harris to be his vice president, basically screwing them for 2024. And they proceeded to do, have these policies that were going to lead to hyperinflation, and they did a lot of looting and a lot of shit that, would go south. And I think it was planned all along for Trump to win. And so, the Democratic Party was fucked. The only thing they got going for him is Trump's a complete idiot or whatever he is. That'd be generous to say he was an idiot. That would be the best case scenario for him and his followers. But it's more likely he's just completely handled and doing the bidding of his controller. So in all that, you have a media and, two political parties and everybody else that was involved that was complicit. And, George Clooney coming out and say, Joe Biden isn't the same man was back in 2008 or whatever it is. He isn't the same man now as he used to be. Well, he wasn't the same man in 2020. You guys all saw that he was declining, but you decided to push him through anyway, which is just fucking stupid and short-sighted. And we don't know what really went into all that. Whether this is just, they're all handled and they didn't have a choice when you back him. But now you can't try to claim street cred and go after him when you're fucking 5 or 6 years too late, right? I mean, you were out in front of the curve in 2015, CNN was, but then they, completely caved on all the things they knew about him. And even if you take away the senility, he was never really presidential. I mean, not in terms of, like, all these guys suck, and he sucked worse. Like, he just was a boob. I mean, when he got caught plagiarizing the first time he ran for president, you think he would have given up, or they would have just said, all right, yeah, we'll get rid of this guy. And then the second and third time he ran for president, but by the time Barack Obama made him vice president, everyone knew the guy was a fucking boob. And then he was a boob that was getting older. And so, I mean, whatever reason they nominated him could be the same reason that Obama nominated Kamala Harris, because of demographics and other things. But at the end of the day, they all sucked and we were right. And they never come around and say, oh my God, you guys, said the obvious back when it was obvious, but none of us would say it. That Joe Biden had mental issues, obviously related to Parkinson's or whatever it might be. Anyways, let me wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.